Welcome to DWBIADDA channel. Please subscribe for latest training videos.
Hello to you all. Today we are going to talk about recycler views. So what is recycler view and for what do we use it? We use recycler view to represent some scrolling lists. When we have some data that needs to be represented like a list, but we cannot represent it without scrolling, we can use recycler views. We can use recycler view to show some pattern that repeats many times and only values of that pattern's elements are changing. As you can see, we have 3 recycler views in this activity, and we read some data from a database and then represent it here. We read incomes from business, and as they have the same pattern, they have income value and date, and that repeats every time. So if we have 3 different incomes, then we have 3 different values and 3 different dates, but the pattern is the same. So now let's go to code and see how do we initialize our recycler view. As you can see, we initialize them like any other designing object. As you can see, we have text views here and then recycler views here. It's the same pattern. So that would be it about initialization of recycler view. Now we're going to the recycler views items. So let's go to this recycler which we use here and here. It's the same recycler view. So let's go here. As you can see, we have some description here and we have some text view here. So this is the place, the text view where we place our date, and this is the text view where we place our description. That pattern repeats for every income or investment, and we just put different texts and dates here. So it's quite simple. You just need to understand the process of creating recycler views. So one pattern repeats every time and changing value of pattern's elements. So now let's talk about one important part about recycler views, and that's recycler views adapters. So why do we need to use adapters? Because a recycler view hasn't got any implemented adapters, so we can just call adapter and then type in our data. No, we have to create adapters by ourselves, and now I'll show you one of my adapters. As we used to show items and recycler view for activity investments and incomes, I'll go to the adapter for invested. So let's go there. And as you can see, this is some very long code, and it's not so easy, I must tell you. But when you code one adapter, then you can copy that every time and just change the data that you're using. So let's go through this code and I'll explain you everything. We have one class here and its name, and then what it extends. It extends recycler views adapter. We have here invested adapter and then holder. So before explaining all of this, I'll explain you what the holder is. But now let's explain these 4 variables. So this is the context variable, then we have private string invested, and then we have private string of dates. So we use this data to fill these 2 text views. Every element from this string is one value for this design element. So if string's length is, for example, 3, then we have 3 patterns like this, and then element from this array at index 1 and element from this array at index 1 will be for the element of the recycler view at index 1. Then we have index 2, same story here and same story here. So if we have 3 elements, then we'll have 3 elements from this array and 3 elements from this array, and our recycler view will have 3 elements like first, second and third, and the pattern is the same. I'll show you now on the picture so you can better understand. And as I said, here is the picture of our recycler views that we explained before. So as you can see, we have this description here, or income value, and then we have date. That's the one item. Also here one item, and here, as you can see, we have 3 items here, and like I said, one pattern that repeats 3 times. I hope that you now understand better about what was I talking, but it's very simple to understand what the recycler view is. So now let's get back to code and let's get back to explaining our adapter. So we have this function here, and that's constructor for our class. So as you can see, we have some parameters, and then our context from here gets the value from this context. Our array invested from here gets value from this array, and same about the date. Typeface is just about the font, so you don't have to worry about that. Now we have our holder, and a holder is very important for our recycler view because we define what do we use in our recycler views item. And as you can see, I defined some text views and then my layout. I have defined my text views here. As you can see, this ID and this ID are here. We define them here, and then we define our layout. As you can see in the XML code, we have that ID here. So we define everything like we're talking about simple activity. We have function get item count, and that's how much items do we have to create in our recycler view, and we just return our array length, because how many items are in array, that many items do we have in our recycler view. Then we have this function on create view holder, and this function is to inflate our layout, and as you can see, we inflate it here. We need to enter right ID, and then we return our holder. So let's explain this function now. This is very important function, and imagine that we have 3 objects in our recycler view. We are going through these functions 3 times. Every time when we have some object, we're going here to get element from this array, then we're going here to get element from this array, and we're setting the typefaces. Then we have second element. We're going here to get element at the index 2, and then we're going for element at the index 2 here in this array. This function is called when we set value for every design element, and this function repeats as many times as the number of the items which we have in this array. That's about this function here, and we have view holder dot item layout, that's our layout, dot set on click listener. So if we click on our item of one of our items, we can set here what will happen. We can send user to another activity, we can display some message, or you can choose what do you want to do, but here is that function. I have different variations of adapters, so I can show you. This is adapter for another recycler view, and as you can see, everything same instead of this. So we don't have 2 arrays now, we have just 1 array, and we have different invested item, we have different layout here, we have different text view, but everything else is same, as you can see. Also for the monthly adapter, as you can see, everything same instead of these variables. And now let me show you how I call my adapters. Now we're at the investments activity, and I'll show you how we call our adapters. Now we have reading from database here. This procedure is not so important now, I'll explain it in some other video. But after reading all data, here is the part where we call our adapter. This is the layout manager, and layout manager separates our text view in as many columns as we type here. Then we have to set fixed size of recycler view here, and to set layout manager here, and then we call our adapter. So invested adapter dot name of it, then new invested adapter like initialization, and then context, that's this, then one array, that's this, and then second array, that's this. So all of three parameters are here, as you can see. Then we set adapter for our recycler view. As you can see, it's very simple. It can be some kind of hard for you until you practice it 1 or 2 or 3 times, but after that you'll get into routine, and then you'll know how to manipulate with recycler views easily, and they're very useful. You can just look at some of the popular apps that you are using, and you'll see where the recycler views are and how much are they used. For this tutorial, that would be it. Thank you.